25 and published in the Morris Newsbeat and the Daily Record. And by posting of such resolution on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall, all the above actions will be in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Roll call.
Mayor Karr.
Present.
Mr. Cortez.
Present.
Mr. Broom. Mr. Houston.
Present.
Mr. Ivey.
Present.
Mr. Pontier.
Present.
Ms. Verga. Present.
I just have a couple things for conference. The Musco, we get a warranty from Musco Lighting. They do the lighting over at the ball fields at Community Park for Little League. Part of that warranty is after the 10-year warranty, they come in and replace the lights. I believe this year they're replacing the brown lights, 42 lights for the ball field. I believe they got delivered and will be being installed this week, I think. Not sure the exact install date, but we're getting all new lights over there. So I think that's a worthwhile.
Purchase price?
Yeah, we pay for a warranty after it's a 10-year warranty, and so we pay for that, and then at the end, they put new bolts on. Part of it. It's good, I think it's a good thing.
They're not LED, are they?
Can't be sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I don't know, I can't remember whether I brought this up at the last meeting with the NJTransit. They're gonna be raising wires, because of the size of the train cars that will be coming through, F-rail cars. And the two places in Morris Plains that they'll be doing is the Hanover Avenue Bridge, and then the bridge out on Route 10. There'll be no structural work. It'll just be raising up the wires. However, they do that underneath the bridge. There's not enough clearance. That's required for them to do that work. They have a whole process through the New Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. I was on a Zoom meeting with them and the other mayors who it affects earlier this month, and just gave us an overview of the project and what they're gonna end up doing and all that sort of stuff. The PowerPoint that was given to us is also in the clerk's office. If anybody wants to see that, just ask Roseanne or Rosemary, and they can get you that information. So that's all I have.
While you're on that topic, they built a new doghouse there by the,
Yeah, so
are those pumps operational, the new ones?
the
or
pumps
no?
are operational. There's two new double the size horsepower pumps that were there than the previous ones.
They
The
pump those
electric-
up to more per
Yeah,
minute.
they were 25 horsepower, now they're 50 horsepower. They had to extend the size of the doghouse, obviously, to accompany for the pumps. The only thing that has to be done there is the upgrade to electrical. I think it's 240 now, and they have to upgrade that to 480, but the pumps are working. The 480 is just more of a backup type of thing, so, but that's the only other thing that has to be done with it. So Nancy came by tonight and said that under the bridge was bone dry.
It just started raining.
Just gonna say tonight's a good
Come on,
test,
Nancy.
right?
It was about 20
Listen,
minutes.
Sal, I'll take bone dry, don't argue with it, all right? So,
It's a good test. It
this
rains
has
hard.
been 100 years in the
Both go
making.
through hell there. It's me and you in that side of the woods.
This has been 100 years in the making, so let's hope it remains dry. So we're looking forward to a heavy rain here in Morris Plains. So we'll see what
We could
happens.
use the water.
We do need some rain.
Yeah.
Reservoirs are low.
Anyway, that's all I have tonight. Sal?
I don't have anything for this part.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, the only thing I have is the Morris Plains Soccer Association is having their opening day on Saturday, but that wasn't what I was going to mention. If anybody's using Simon's Field and you move the soccer goals, they're just requesting that you put it back. People have been bringing them over to the basketball courts, and it just takes a lot of time and effort to move them back to where they're supposed to be prior to all the practices. So that's all.
Any way to?
Yeah, we used to
Like
nail
the
it down
side.
and sandbag, both.
Yeah, sandbag.
Nail and
And they
sandbag.
still move them.
Oh my God.
So it would to do chains and concrete footers and weld it.
You have a grease gun?
Just
Put grease around the whole arch.
Yeah.
I
don't
We
know
can hook
about
a battery up to them.
These kids.
Anyway.
Kids are kids.
Like this. Well, they used to carry picnic tables down the middle of 202, right? Mike? I mean, good old days, I guess.
Don't give me ideas.
Not tonight, Mayor?
Nothing? Good? Nancy?
Yeah, I have two things, but first is just a question about kids, because today I happened to be walking by Simon's Park when school got out, and I don't know a lot about turf fields, but the kids took their little bikes and they were riding all around on the turf field,
Oh, good.
and I didn't
Chase
see.
them out?
Okay, so I didn't wanna do that, cause I was looking, is there a sign that says no bikes, and I didn't see a sign, so I was like, I'm not gonna be that mom that's yelling at somebody else's kids.
Call the police.
But I do.
Really? Call the police?
Honestly, I didn't know that if it was a rule or not, so I didn't.
No,
wanna-
it's on there, no bicycles on the
It says it,
field.
okay.
When I go, I stand in the middle of the field and I says, guys, stop, give me the ball. Get these bikes out of here and you can play again. And I just sit in the middle
Oh,
of
they
the field
weren't
so they
even
can't play.
playing ball, they were just riding around,
Yeah.
whatever, okay, so,
I'd like to
that's
see
good
this.
to know,
Yeah,
remember
it's
there,
not good.
and I see that.
Yeah.
After school is like a prime time apparently for that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are continuing the discussion that we had about, the meeting format, and so a little more work, the mayor was kind enough to get, I guess, the clerks to help print out some agendas from other towns, so we could see what's going on all across Morris County, so, you wanna just take it's like the resolution and the agenda, and you'll pass it down. So what I'm passing out is a copy of a sample meeting agenda that we could discuss, and I'll tell you how we arrived here. Looking at what goes on in Morris County across the board, about 1/3 of the towns don't mention on their agenda a specific time for closed session. 1/3 of them hold it before the meeting, similar to what we were doing, but they schedule it. They'll say 6:30 is executive session and 7:30 is start time for the regular meeting. And about another third, that's incorrect there, hold it after the public session, which is what we were requesting. It's important to know also the times of the meeting, that Morris Plains is the latest for the 8:30 start for the regular session. There are two Morris County towns that have an 8 o'clock start. 19 start at 7 PM, and 9 municipalities start at 7:30 PM. 2 actually start before 7, one is at 6:30, one is at 6. So, you know, we're at the end of that, and we had a request from the public, you know, consistently to make the meetings earlier so they're easier to get to and get to do all the things you have to do before you get to bed. And also to encourage public attendance and participation during sessions that are open to the public, including the conference session. So instead of having people, we do want you to sit in on our conference sessions, so if you come and hear the council discussion, instead of having you leave the room and then come back, whenever possible, we would like to hold our executive sessions at a different time, so we're not having the public have to leave. So a more of a seamless flow in the meeting. So what we came up with here was, this agenda that I passed out to the council members, where we have the call to order, pledge of allegiance, the mayor notice of Open Public Meetings Act, the roll call, which we just had, and then we approve minutes, and instead of having a separate conference session, because we saw that in other towns, they don't actually call it conference, they have discussion during their regular meeting. So build it into the agenda, so start the meeting, one of the agenda items after we approve the minutes would be presentations by guests. Sometimes we have like the MUA come in or JCP&L to give a presentation. That would have to be approved in advance by the clerk's office and the governing body. And if that was on the agenda, that would be published. And then we would have council mayor discussion to replace the separate conference session that we advertise. Then we would have our consent agenda and ongoing, the report of standing committees of the council, public comment, which I think we recommend that it moves after the council reports. So if anyone has questions about the council reports or anything that was in the consent agenda, it gives you an opportunity to kind of have a little more context about what you want to ask about or for clarification of. Then we would have introduction of ordinances on second, resolutions, unfinished business, vouchers. Then we could go into executive session, and then if needed, if we want to take action from something that came out of our executive session, we would have to come out of executive session and have an item under new business that we introduce and take action on before we adjourn. Now, the disadvantage that we've heard about having executive session at the end of the meeting is that a lot of times the room's empty when we come out of executive. So we could possibly be taking action on something without the public present to hear it live. Now, hopefully we'll have official meeting recordings, so that information will be quickly available soon after the meeting so you could see what business was conducted. We don't expect volunteers to stay if our executive session is late in the evening or something like that. Volunteers that are currently recording our meetings on behalf of the public now. So that was kind of where we landed, and the 7:30 start is what's recommended. And that's based on feedback from the council as well, because while we do have some towns that will have like an executive session at 6:30 and then they start their regular meeting at 7:30, that sounds great, but we have young and older people who are still working and need to, finish their kids' practices or dinner with the family before they come to the meeting. And we don't want to make, participating in local government something that's restrictive to people who are working and have kids. So we want to make it as inclusive as possible. So 7:30 was kind of where we landed, and I just want to see if the council has any, or mayor and council have any thoughts on this latest proposal.
So if nobody does, I have it, I have a couple here.
Okay,
And this is really just looking at it, I just got this at 3 o'clock or whatever.
yeah, I'm not saying we'll leave it
No,
out.
I'm just, but I would move 5 and 6.
Okay,
No sense doing business of a meeting when you have people sitting here, like, we had Mr. Delgado here, he had to leave, and he came up from the shore wherever he does, so a lot of these people travel, so, I know it's only 2 seconds usually, but I would just switch those.
so put presentations right
Yeah.
after roll call,
Mhm.
before approval of minutes.
And then, new business, I don't know, because some of this stuff, when you come out of executive session, may not necessarily be new business, that could be old business, so even though you're,
Mhm.
so if you could move new business, after maybe unfinished business, one of those, switch those around,
So it's currently there in
Right.
our agenda,
right?
so but I think this is a good time to correct it if you.
Yeah, I mean, I just, we're not coming out of executive session. You may take action in the executive session, but it's not necessarily new business, right?
we
But
can
the
take
way you
action.
explained it is, we would come out and,
We may have to.
yeah, but that, again, you may not necessarily be
Yeah.
new business.
So
You
what,
wanna just put old and new business together or something maybe?
some towns don't even say anything, they just say executive session and adjournment. Do we need to
That's
say?
fine.
There's no legal requirement
No,
to
there's
put
nothing.
anything, for example, and I'll refer, real quick before I forget to do this, we should mark the drafted agenda that Councilmember Verga just handed out as A1 for identification purposes. We should do that because we're in conference, we're addressing it, and it's an exhibit. And the minutes should reflect that it's A1, and we should keep a copy of that wherever we ordinarily would keep documents that arise out of a public meeting. This way, if there's ever an Oprah request or someone wants to look at it, it's identifiable and we can locate it. Just for the record, the resolution that Councilmember Verga circulated, we can mark that as A2 for identification purposes, but I want the record to reflect that that's deliberative materials of council at this present moment, therefore not discoverable. That's not a public document, not operable, so to speak, for lack of a better word. But I just wanted to identify those documents. Now, having done that, I want to turn my attention back to A1. In reference to A1 in section 17, Councilmember Verga proposes new business if needed, based upon the colloquy here tonight between the mayor and Councilmember Verga, just so that we understand our legal obligations, we don't have to have anything for 17. It would be acceptable to have 16, if we move this around, whatever it may be, but if 16 remains executive session, there's nothing, at least legally speaking, that would prohibit us from making adjournment number 17. We can always take action after executive session, we just announce it prior to going into executive session, and then we'd have to make the appropriate motions and handle it. But we're not required to have new business there, and it may make it a little bit,
Is that in the statement already for executive action maybe?
well, yeah, I mean, we may take action, a lot of times we say we don't know when it may be, or, we've come back. Technically, under Open Public Meetings Act too, just so that the council's aware, I have said this in the past, we really, when possible, when you go into executive session, you're supposed to alert the public as to what you're discussing, and to the extent that you can without breaking any of the executive session conferences, and And then you are also to advise that at some point you may take formal action. So, for example, you may say, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to executive session for purposes of discussing personnel because we're having an issue with X, but don't get into it. And then at some point, we may take formal action thereafter. That's the appropriate way to handle it. But for the limited purpose of what's being discussed here tonight, there's no requirement that we have a number 17 on this proposed agenda or any agenda.
But the public would know ahead of time that we may take action
Correct.
after.
Right,
So
so
we let them
we're
know
going
before we go to.
Right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I
I
kinda know
think
where
you got the,
I kinda know where
you
you're
got the,
headed.
you got the question.
So we'd say we're going in executive session for purposes of B7. Okay, well, we all know what B7 is, right? But then it's to discuss a personnel matter because we're having an issue with this,
XYZ.
pay of a certain employee, not naming names, not getting into it. That's appropriate, and we may take formal action, which puts the public on notice that we may be in executive session for 2 minutes, we may be into it for 2.5 hours. But when we come out, based on what occurs in executive session, we may take formal action. The legal obligation to do that, just so you understand, is that this way, I'm not suggesting anybody would, but if there is a member in the audience that leaves for executive session, and their interest may be piqued or triggered, or they want to hear it as a taxpayer, they have the right to wait and then come back after executive session, and then we're not, when we come out of executive, doing all these actions that nobody saw coming or anticipated. I know it's probably form over substance.
I like the
That
fact that
just-
the 17 is there because it lets the public know that we may be doing something after executive session.
I have some,
So I like the
That's a
point that
good
it's
point.
there, it's, okay.
That's another.
They see 16, and then they say adjournment, so they say, why am I staying here? Because they're gonna go right to adjournment. No, we might be doing something, we might not, and we might, but I like the fact that they're aware that something may happen.
so what happened in
As
a
far
couple
as-
of examples is they actually had like a little statement at the bottom of the agenda that said just that. Instead of having it be number 17, it just said, after executive session, the council may or may not take action on items discussed. Something like to that effect,
Yeah.
which I think would be good. But to your point, Mayor, where would you like to see new business?
Unfinished business, then new business, or new business, then unfinished business.
So right here.
But I did say after, John eloquently stated, I did put not necessarily, so you don't need to necessarily have it in there, period, but
Just keep it
Or-
forward.
I agree.
Or you could do executive session and then afterwards unfinished and theoretically new business and move it around that way. This way, you're not getting caught up if this is, I would take an action, but it's not necessarily new action.
Just my opinion, I would rather have it there for
Yep.
maybe the one time that you use it. I know we don't use it often, a lot of these things we don't use often, unfinished business we don't often use, right? But
Sometimes we do.
sometimes you
I'd
do,
rather
right?
have
So I'd
it.
rather have them in there, so.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you don't want a resident to say, I read the agenda, it said, executive session and then adjournment, so I didn't think there was something in between there, whereas now, look, there might be something in between there, maybe it may not. I like that
That's
it's
what we're
there.
at the bottom
Yeah,
state.
okay, I'm fine with that, as long as,
And I think I try to make a habit of saying that.
You do,
during-
you
so,
do.
Yeah.
Whatever, if it's on.
Yeah.
if
but
it's
this,
on
they
this-
see it and they know it.
The other thing to John's point, thank you for reminding me about that, was a lot of the sample agendas that you provided, Mayor, did list the topics that were gonna be discussed in executive session. So those were published on Tuesday when people get their initial draft agenda, what the topics that were to be discussed during executive session. And they were, fairly specific, a lawsuit with Verizon or something like that. Or, so I can provide some examples and maybe we could consider trying to identify those in advance when possible, so we could have them on the actual agenda. And then, okay, so then we move on to the resolution. So,
Wait, any other
I'm not
comments?
saying I wanna pass the
No.
resolution, I wanna discuss it.
Any other comments on the,
So I do have just a question. So I appreciate what you've done, Nancy. I think this is great work, right?
Teamwork.
Or the committee or, whatever, but it's great. My only question is with the public comment, I agree that it should be after standing committees of the council. My only question is, should we consider perhaps maybe doing it after the ordinances, right? Because then we're introducing ordinances now, because right now I'm the one that does it, but myself and the mayor make a point of explaining what the ordinances are of, when we're introducing them, but a lot of times we'll introduce it, we'll do it on second reading, and then if the public has questions about what we just did, right, that's the only reason I'm thinking maybe we do public comment after that, right, so that they can ask, hey, what did you just do, what is this ordinance about, right? So I would suggest moving 10 to after 12.
so So I don't know whether you can ask, is the public comment for the ordinances at the second,
We always, on the second reading,
the hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they get an opportunity to be heard.
Okay.
I mean,
On second.
on second,
Second.
I guess on first, yeah, I get it. I mean, because the first ordinance, we just pass it right through without an explanation.
My suggestion would be to do that in council mayor discussion, to like mention that we're gonna be
Sure.
introducing an ordinance, and you could do it there.
Okay, I mean, I do, yeah, we do it I do it currently during the reports of standing committees, but yeah, we could do it before, but Johnny, actually, you're right, or Mr. Mayor, you brought it up as well, right? Yes, part of what we read is we now open it for public comment, right? So I think sometimes that might get lost.
Right.
Yeah, but
because it's formality, but.
So the first one was really just an introduction,
Sure.
really,
Right,
right?
sure, it's fine.
Yeah.
It does, you know, theory, you could pass an ordinance on first reading and then vote it down on the second based on the public comment and what you now consider at the public hearing.
Okay.
So, I know it's rare usually, especially, you know, it can be rare, but I think that's really the theory on that. And I guess it's still concerning you want the public to speak, but.
Okay, no, but.
At least they get that opportunity on second, right? So they will be
Right.
heard, and at that point, if what they say is persuasive enough, and it may be, then council has the opportunity to say, oh, thank you for calling that to our attention, and then vote the ordinance. You're not hand-tied to vote
Sure.
it
But
again,
the
so.
public wouldn't have that ordinance when you introduce it anyway. They don't have, you know, they wouldn't be able to read the ordinance, it's not out there.
Right. Until it's on second.
It's not
yeah.
published until.
Until it's published, right?
Right.
Here, wherever,
Until
you know,
we vote to
have it
introduce
published,
it.
whatever. So, I think that's a little premature, but, so,
I mean, yeah, that's true, you could discuss it, and we vote it down. We vote no to introduce it. That could happen, right?
yeah.
Right.
So we decide, yeah.
Okay. That was it. So my only suggestion.
Anybody else?
Tyler, Mike, nobody?
Not really.
7:30, start?
Yeah, I like to start. I mean, I'm new enough where I trust the people that have the more experience just about the flow and the order of the numbers and everything. So I like the earlier start time. I think it makes sense to be able to invite the public in at a more convenient time and have a little more interaction. And yeah, I really appreciate all the work you did. I'm sure you and the mayor, it was not easy to pull all this from 19 different townships and municipalities, so.
39.
30, so, I appreciate the work, and I thank you for that.
It's a range of transparency, from
Right.
some that have like, they have almost nothing on their agenda, to like super detailed.
Right.
Kind of interesting. Something the mayor highlighted too on the copies that he prepared in the folder for me was the public comment, time limit on public comment per person, per meeting. That we do have one in our ordinances.
It is, but it's just not written.
Well, it's not on the agenda.
Correct.
And we never enforce it.
And we don't enforce it. So I guess there's, you know, if that's something that people want to discuss, we have to discuss that separately. Is this something we want? There was actually, it usually ranged between 3 and 5 minutes on all these other agendas. And one actually had a limit of 30 minutes for a public comment period, a total of 30 minutes. So I don't think that would be very,
That I have concerns about,
Yeah.
no disrespect to whatever town that may be, but I mean, if it's council's wishes to limit the timeframe, you certainly can do that. I mean, a lot of towns follow Robert's Rules of Order, which is where these timeframes come from. But I almost will say I will disallow council to limit the amount of, this is a public meeting, and if every single resident from Morris Plains wants to come and speak, they should have that opportunity. If we're here for 3 days, we're just simply here for 3 days. And I know as council, you know, I mean, we never want to limit the public. I don't think whoever may have done that.
The only reason I do bring that up, Nancy, and I know it's been an ordinance and we've had that, you know, forever,
yes.
but people don't know about it, right?
Right.
So if somebody does have to, you know, your 3 minutes is up, or 5
Is it
minutes
three?
is
I
up,
don't
whatever it
know.
is,
I don't even know what ours
then they're gonna
is.
say, well, where is that, you know, or how come we didn't know, or whatever, so that's the only reason I raised that question.
Okay.
Or that point.
My only reaction is, I agree with you, it is there. I think that if we're going to do that, I think we need to say that at the beginning of public session.
Well, it has to be written on there.
No, I
It's usually on the
understand.
agenda.
It's written on the
People are gonna
agenda.
enforce it, it's right on
No,
there.
I understand that, but I think outside of writing it, if for some reason, we haven't done it, because I don't think we need to currently, right? But if for some reason, the council decides that we need to, my personal feeling is that we should announce it, not just in writing, but now announce it at the beginning of public session, saying you have
X
whatever
amount
the
of
time.
time.
Yeah, that way the public's very, very aware. But we haven't had a need to do it, I'm not saying we should do it, I'm just saying if that happens, that's what.
But we already have it on the books, it's on the books, so.
So
Something
the,
that, you can't be picking and choosing then either, right? It's either gonna be
Yeah.
yes or no, so.
everybody or
If
nobody?
it's already on the books, I suggest you put it on here so that we don't have problems moving forward, whatever it is, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. However it is.
Well, I mean, it's currently not on the agenda, and we have it in place, so we could just keep doing that.
But then somebody could say, I didn't know. How come you cut me off and last week somebody went on for 10 minutes? That's,
Well, I guess the first decision we have to make is this something that we want to enforce?
It's currently.
I think you have to have something, you have to have some sort of a mechanism. I don't know what that is. You can make it 15 minutes, you can make it 10 minutes, whatever, but you have to have some sort of a mechanism.
But I think the point is we already have it, right? It's already there, we're just not enforcing it. And I don't know that that necessarily needs to change, right? Because it's already written.
Again, you may not have an instant, we may not have had one for 100 years, but you may have one in 3 years, right? That you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna enforce it on this person, like we're not.
Well, that's kind of my point, is that we
When we
wouldn't
take it
enforce
off the books.
we wouldn't enforce it per person, we would do it for the entire public session. We would say that at this public session, the public is limited to 3 minutes, regardless of who it is that speaks.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah, I'm
Right.
not, Bill Houston can only speak, it's whoever comes to
So if we
speak.
got like a big crowd there,
Right.
you have to say that. But
Right.
it's like tonight,
Right.
But that's what I don't think it has to be a blanket.
Right.
yeah,
Like if
No.
everyone's lining up out the door to tell us how great we are,
exactly.
we have to keep.
But there has to be a guideline to follow, right? We can't just arbitrarily decide one day, today it's gonna be 3, tomorrow it's gonna be 7, the next time it's gonna be 5. It has, I think, Mayor, your point, we have to
We
write
just
it down
refer to what's in the
somewhere.
books.
Right, we
That's-
refer to, yeah.
First, we have to figure out where is it written, because I've seen it, but it must be in the ordinance,
I think
or
it's in
maybe
the
it's in the bylaws.
It's
I'm
in the
not sure.
bylaws. Yeah,
Okay,
it is in the bylaws, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's like.
but you're itching to like say, we can't enforce it one day and not another day, right?
Right, to Councilmember Houston's point, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting on the agenda, public portion, residents to limit it to 5 minutes each. And then saying, when you know, ladies and gentlemen, now open the public to you guys to speak, be mindful, there is a 5-minute time limit, but we're willing, if able, to give you a little more time, or whatever it may be.
So I think in some of those things, there's language, Nancy, that.
Yes, there is.
Right.
Examples. Mhm.
There's language in there, to allow every member here, right, ample time to speak. But if there's one person here that wants to speak, I don't think you have to enforce a 5-minute rule. If there's 30 people, maybe you'd have to, right?
Correct, by merely putting it on
So
the
maybe
agenda
that's
and
the-
making that announcement, doesn't mean you're now hand-tied to the 5 minutes. You can always just turn a blind eye to it and have it there and let people talk for an hour if they like, if you're comfortable with that, and that seems to be working. The time limits generally are put on by public bodies for 2 reasons. One, when you have a hot topic and there's 600 people that come to, if you let everybody talk for 20-some minutes, do the math. So that's where that time limit would come from. And then the second time, you do it in case you have somebody being super unruly or something like that. It gives you an ability to kind of enforce and have an enforcement mechanism there. I know we've never, thankfully, ever needed to use it, but that's one of the other pieces, I guess, of wisdom as to why this time limit. But mainly it's because if there is a hot topic and everybody wants to be heard, there's just a practical problem that you can't, and then once you let the first person speak for 45 minutes, guess what? Now everybody's gonna speak for 45 minutes and that becomes contagious, and then it just goes on and on and on. So that's why you generally have these time limits. But by putting it on there, you don't handcuff yourself, and like Councilmember Houston says, it also advises the public that it's out there.
There's a certain limit.
Not like we're doing arbitrary restrictions, so.
I think the important point there is that we're not trying to limit what the public wants to say, but we're just trying to make the meetings efficient, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, I think it's kind of we reserve the right to implement this
And
when.
that's what I said, there's an example on there,
Mhm.
you know, whatever it says, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure
Hold me
some
to the
examples.
quote, but
We can have-
it does say in there about, giving ample time to everybody who's at the meeting, or something along those lines, but there is a 3 or 5, whatever it was.
I think that's important to make sure that everybody in the room is heard. So like, if it's 10 o'clock and somebody has to leave, they have to go to train early in the morning, and they haven't had their turn yet, somebody's talking for 45 minutes.
That's a very good point, too. That's one of the other reasons, too.
That's why it's public portions.
So that's something we could discuss. The other thing I wanted to say is about this resolution is that we say, whenever possible, regular meetings of the governing body of the borough shall start at 7:30. Is that a good time? Is there, no? You don't think it?
That's one of the changes that I would make prior to the time, and I think I sent Roseanne an email to this effect a couple of weeks ago, that whenever possible,
Take
you
it out.
can't, it makes it arbitrary.
Okay.
You gotta start at
So
7:30.
regular meetings of the governing body of the borough shall start at 7:30 PM. Hereafter, executive session from which the public shall be excluded shall convene following the approval of vouchers. And then I added, unless the majority of the council approves convening an executive session earlier in the meeting. Is that something we could do, or you don't wanna do that? Keep it at the end. Cause like,
Yeah,
what if
'cause
we
what's
have,
important-
police interviews at 6 o'clock, and we're gonna have to separately notice for that,
Well, that's separate.
so that's.
But your
so
regular meetings are,
Still leave it the same.
7:30.
Okay, so we'll take out that clause as well. Okay, those are the things I wanted to run by everybody.
so that's the other point I did wanna make. So when you do these interviews and whatnot, we've started at 5:30 or whatever, and that gives us all the way until 8:30, which sometimes is crunched, right? So you have to think about that as well with the starting early. That's a whole hour that you lose. I know I can't get here much earlier than 5:30 on a weekday, and I don't know about everybody else,
Yeah, no, that's not possible.
so it's something to
But to
consider
change
here.
every meeting, to have every meeting start at 8:30, because we have to do that once a year or once every couple of years, we might wanna just have a special meeting
Just
for
something to
interviews.
think about.
Like have a special meeting, and we'll just do
That
that.
all depends on timing too, but
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you, Nancy. I think, those occasions that happen, we'll have to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis and see how it works. And if it doesn't work and people can't make it, then, we can revise it. But I think, the proposal you have here, I think makes sense.
for most
Right.
meetings, right? I mean, I think we have to go with what makes sense for most,
again, yeah,
the majority of them.
this is the most, right? So like we did with new business, that hardly ever happens, but it happens.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is give everyone some examples of things we could include on our list of executive topics, just so you have those ideas in your head of what are the things that are okay to say on the agenda. And also send you along, what was the other thing we just talked about doing? I lost it now.
Moving to the businesses,
Post executive session.
Yes, well, what to say about public comment.
Right.
The time limit on public comment, the
whatever's
wording
up-
for that.
whatever's written is the time limit that we'll have, but you know the town or the phrase that I
Yep, so
talked
we'll
about.
propose some text that we can include on the front of every agenda that says, public will be limited to X, whatever. Okay,
It'll go in the public portions section. That little blurb.
okay, right in there, right with it, okay. All right, thank you for your time, everybody.
Of course, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bill,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just, really just one thing for conference. So the ordinance that or the draft, that you gave me last meeting, the occupancy of dwelling, I do have just a couple of questions about it. And I can go over them now if you like, or, we can do it offline, but, okay, just to, just want to make sure that we're looking at all the processes and understanding how it's enforced and all that kind of stuff. So, if we could do that sometime, maybe next week or something, that'd be great. So,
yeah,
whatever you have time.
yeah, okay, yep,
Whenever you have
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, okay, we'll get to that.
Great, excellent. Then my only question is the resolution that we have on the agenda tonight, 2025-112, which is the resolution for the public question about the building construction of the new police department building. I know in the resolution, it doesn't say it, but I know we discussed having a public session to discuss all that.
This is just really for the county.
Okay.
This is okays to the county, it has nothing to do with what will happen or the process or anything.
Okay, so this is just a
This just gets it on the ballot.
formality to get on the ballot. Got it, understood. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Nobody? Okay, we do need an executive session.
Okay.
With this.
Resolution number 2025-108, executive session. Be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Morris Plains on the 4th day of September 2025. The mayor and the Borough Council should meet in executive session from which the public should be excluded to discuss matters as permitted pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12, subsections
B8.
B8. The time when the matter is discussed pursuant to paragraph 1 hereof can be disclosed to the public is as soon as practicable after the final resolution of the aforesaid matter. Is there a vote?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. We're going into executive session. We'll be returning by 8:30.